Hi, welcome back. I am Justine here. Today we are going to start Scenes and Structure, Module 3, Session 2. So far we have covered Module 1, Plot and Structure, and Module 2, Character and Viewpoint. We are going to start with how to shape and bring life to your scenes, and that will include how to build the structure of your scenes, how to open a scene, and what to consider when writing scenes. Now, scene structure. Like all stories, crime fiction novels consist of many scenes, just like the main plot. Each one of these individual scenes must be built with a structure most easily described as having a beginning, a middle, and an ending. The content of each scene is what we will be addressing here. Now, how do you open a scene? You may start a scene with action, or start with an activity, or start an activity without explaining anything. Both of these methods create strong momentum that makes the reader open the next page. Now, we start with action. I have an example for you here. Example, scene starts with action. This is an example from one of my books. Helmet was still on the prowl in the inky dining room. His finger tightened on the trigger and he fired. The room filled with smoke and the smell of gunpowder. Somebody found a light switch, illuminating Helmet's monstrous figure in motion. There you have created dramatic tension and suspense. You gave the reader an inkling of impending danger or a murder, and you build anticipation about what might happen next. And that was in very few words. You did not do it in the long narrative. It was just a few sentences. And then the next example is to start a scene with an activity without explaining anything. This one also comes from one of my books. Martina leads her guests into the dining room, and everyone takes a seat around the large wood tables, studying the sumptuous meal and champagne chilling in the ice bucket. "What are we celebrating?" asks Barbara. This is another one whereby you have created questions for the reader. Now the reader is wondering, what are they celebrating, and is it a surprise party, and for whom, So this is how you do it, like create anticipation with those two different methods. I have done 8 points to consider when writing scenes. You may use this as a checklist when you're writing your scenes. Number 1, every scene has to have a point. Tell the reader where the scene is taking place, that is setting. How much time has elapsed since the last scene? Do your research, foreshadowing, backstory. The goal of your protagonist should drive the scene. How does your character react to this scene? Let's start with number 1, every scene has to have a point. Every scene must have a purpose to reveal character and move the plot forward. And every scene should build towards a high incident. Remove anything in the scene that doesn't advance the story. Number 2, tell the reader where the scene is taking place, and that is the setting. Where is the scene taking place? Use the setting to launch the tone of the scene. Tell the reader about the smell, sound, provide a sense of time, day or year, and exactly where in the world the action is taking place. For example, Say your scene opens on an isolated mountain where your character is going to face danger. Describe the chill in the air, the silence that conveys gloom, fear, mystery, and the thrilling lonely echo that bounces back when the character shouts. Number 3. How much time has elapsed since the last scene? Don't dive into dialogue and action without telling the reader how much time has elapsed since the previous scene. Scenes need to flow and string together for a sequence of a time. Number 4, do your research. In a detective story, make sure you get the crime scene right. Research and learn the criminal procedure and investigations that are carried out. The sequence of actions leading to the investigation must be realistic and believable. Foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is the advance hint of what is to come later in the story, but without revealing it in detail. It helps readers develop anticipation about the upcoming event. Foreshadowing often appears at the beginning or middle of a scene or in a chapter. As a writer, you have one ambition: to capture the reader's attention and keep them engaged with your story until the end, and foreshadowing is one of the ways you can do this. For example, in a story where the main character keeps dreaming about an accident, there can be multiple events that foreshadow and give hints that the character's life is in danger. The reader may not understand these foreshadowing examples until the very end, when this major plot twist is revealed. And backstory. A backstory is a key moment when the character's childhood and background that is significant and relevant to the character's situation in the scene. Background includes the events that directly lead to the story and its plot. This enhances your scenes and should be quick and brief. Don't go into long narratives when it comes to backstory. Make it short and quick. For example, from one of my books again, Martina's background involves the loss of a child cat that was killed by a neighbor. The incident traumatized her and made her super sensitive to any sort of suffering. That experience drove her to fight against any other form of injustice. Number 7, the goal of your protagonist should drive the scene. That means the goal should be the underpinning factor of all your scenes. That goal is the chain that holds your story together. It may be a huge or small goal, and in the end, your character may even fail to reach that goal, but the goal must be evident in all your scenes. How does your character react to this scene? Don't rush ahead. That means don't rush ahead to the next scene without indicating what the character is feeling or thinking. Action or dialogue should produce a response from the point of view character, emotionally, physically, intellectually, or with deep thought. For every action, there should be an appropriate immediate reaction. That is how you reveal character. I'd like to encourage you to use action, dialogue, narrative, foreshadowing, and backstory interchangeably in scenes for a more compelling effect. However, foreshadowing and backstory should be used sparingly and only when necessary. And when you do, keep it quick and brief. We have come to the end of this session. Your task now is to use the 7 points as a checklist to write and bring life to your scenes. Good luck.